Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I am so delighted to be with you today. I'll give folks just a moment to connect. Thank you all for taking the time at the end of what I am sure was a very busy day, probably a stressful day for many of you. But as I said, I'm so happy to be with you. So, for those of you who do not know me, you will see that I go by my initials. So, my very long first name is Mary Elizabeth. My last name, my family name is Scallon, but that is too long. So when I was young, my family started calling me Mary Beth. Now that I've gotten older, I go by my initials MB. So please feel free to call me MB. Every year, my name is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. I am from Famer, Philadelphia. I have been with Famer since 2007. And I am not from a medical education background. My background is for 35 years, I have been a professional stage actor in the US. And I spend most of my time performing up and down the East Coast of the United States. So in 2007, Famer wanted to bring someone in who was outside of medical education, who had a specialty in both communication and collaboration. So they turned to the theater and they found me. So today, I am going to be talking with you about a very critical element in collaboration, which right now in the educational community, we call cultural sensitivity. So before we begin, a couple of logistical things. I would like to take a comfort break, a prayer break about halfway through our session. I was thinking of doing that about 7 o'clock your time, but I am flexible. So would anyone like to propose a different time other than 7 p.m.? You can raise your hand or just unmute yourself and say so. All right, so does 7 o'clock seem that it will work for our break? Excellent. We will do that. Thank you very much, Gada, who says it is okay. Thank you. The second thing is, in the second half of our session, I will ask you to do some writing just for yourself. So I welcome you to open up an app on your electronic device and have it ready, or perhaps grab some paper and a pencil. And you can do that now while I'm speaking. So feel free to leave your screen if you must to grab some paper, and we'll use that after our break, after 7 o'clock. So let us talk about who we are and what brings us here today. You are all Famer Fellows. You have chosen in the middle of your incredibly stressful and busy lives to learn, to continue your learning as professionals. We are here today to look at the idea of cultural sensitivity. Over time, all of us, especially those of you in the Famer program, will be required to work more and more and more across cultures. It is inevitable. Working with those whose cultural assumptions and practices and values are different than our own requires a very specific set of skills. The good news is these skills can be identified, they can be learned, and they can be practiced. The Famer Fellowship, in my opinion, offers you a particularly excellent opportunity to work across cultures. Although you may be familiar with the cultures in your own Famer Regional Institute in Cairo, inevitably, you will meet people in other regional institutes. You will go to international conferences and get to know other Famer fellows and Famer faculty. It is a laboratory in which you can study cross-cultural collaboration. So we want to work our way to something we'll call cultural competency, which, like any other competency in medicine, is a process, the end of a process. If cultural competency is what we're heading for, the beginning of that journey is what we'll call cultural sensitivity. And in just a moment, we'll define these terms so that you know exactly what we're talking about. But before we start, I have to say something rather unusual. I almost canceled this session. And the reason is twofold. Talking about cultural sensitivity, given what is happening right now in Gaza, is extremely sad and upsetting. It is ironic in the worst way. The second reason I considered canceling was because I am an American. And right now, there is no one in the world who is more culturally insensitive than the person who runs my country. So I had to meditate on this for many days. And in the end, I decided that we should go forward with this seminar, again, for two reasons. One, because there are other ways to interact with cultures other than attacking them, starving them, insulting them. Perhaps we can model a different way. Leaders come and go, but the people persist. So perhaps we can show there is a different way to work across cultures. The second reason I wanted to go forward with this seminar was the only way we will ever get out of this mess is through cultural competency, through trying to understand what is happening with other groups of people. So, thank you very much for all the hearts that I'm seeing for the support you are offering. What I ask you today is to pay less attention to the messenger, this American lady who has suddenly shown up on your screen, and pay more attention to the message. I think this is incredibly important at this time in the world, but I know it is also very difficult. So, thank you, all of you. I'm so happy to be with you. And I can assure you that most people in my country believe in cultural competency. Unfortunately, the loud ones are in power. So let us move forward. Thank you all for your chat comments. That's very moving. I promised myself I would not cry because that is not professional, so I will not cry. Let us define some terms that we're going to be using for the next 2 hours. I'm going to share my screen so we can all take a look. Let's see if this works. So Zoom is fighting me a little bit. Let's see if I can make this work. I want to make sure that my screen is actually being shared. And for some reason, this is not doing it. Screens. Hold down Shift to select two desktops. Okay. So let's see what happens here. Pardon me a moment. I'm having a little trouble with my computer these days. Okay, so I want Zoom to share. Okay. So right now, can anyone see my screen? No, that's what I was worried about. So let's see if this happens. Mm. I apologize. It was working right before I signed on, and now it is not. Mm. Okay. I think what I'll do at the moment, you can send it to one of the moderators. Thank you. That's a really good idea. All right. Well, I think what I'll do is we'll simply do this part spoken, and then I will see if I can change my settings. This has been happening quite a bit, unfortunately, over the past week. So let us first define the term culture. There is perhaps no more complicated word in the world than the word culture. So when we say culture, what do we mean? Here is the definition that I offer to you. Culture is deeply embedded assumptions that I hold about values, behaviors, communication styles, customs that help define my identity and orient me within my community. So let me read that one more time. Culture is deeply embedded assumptions that I hold about values, behaviors, communication styles, customs, and practices that help define my identity and orient me within my community. So the thing I'd like us to think about with that definition is the idea that these assumptions are deeply part of who we are. This means it can often be difficult to see culture. That if I said to you, how do you separate your culture from yourself? It is almost impossible to do. So when we study culture, we have to make a deliberate effort to separate ourselves from our identity and examine our assumptions about culture. So Salwa says it is a complex term with multifaceted principles, values, and beliefs. Absolutely. So today we're going to attempt to get a handle on what we mean by culture. Let's define another term. I'm going to go over here. I'm very unhappy about how my computer is behaving, so I will take some time and see if I can fix it. The next term I want to discuss with you is cultural sensitivity. So think back a few moments. I mentioned that cultural competency is the end of a process. Cultural sensitivity is the beginning. So what does cultural sensitivity mean? I would offer this definition. It is an awareness of assumptions in myself and in others, and of how those assumptions might impact our interactions. So cultural sensitivity is something that happens in my brain. It is an intellectual process and awareness. I become aware that my assumptions about culture, my values, my principles, my beliefs may be different than everyone else's, and that their assumptions are as precious to them as my assumptions are to myself. That awareness is the beginning of a journey. That's cultural sensitivity. Let us now define the end of the journey. So if we begin with an awareness, with cultural sensitivity, what are we traveling toward? What is this cultural competency that we are trying to attain? Please consider this definition. If cultural sensitivity is an awareness, cultural competency are a set of behaviors. And these behaviors are based on that awareness. These behaviors allow me to successfully interact with people whose culture is different from my own. This does not mean cultural competency does not mean that I know everything there is to know about every culture in the world. Not at all. But it is a set of behaviors that allow me to learn, that make me curious, and that make me eager to interact respectfully with other cultures. So today, we officially begin the journey from cultural sensitivity to competency. But all of you have already been on this journey for years. Anyone who works across cultures, who lives in areas of the world where many cultures cross through your neighborhoods and your cities, you have already begun this journey. You already have many of these skills. One of my jobs at Famer is to take those unconscious skills, those intuitive things that you are doing, and bring them to the front of your consciousness. Once those skills, those cultural skills, move to the front of your awareness, you can make decisions about them. You can deepen them, you can sharpen them, you can become better and better at working across cultures. And that is our goal in this seminar, to make all of the unconscious conscious so that you can grow it. All right, I'm going to mention two other terms that come up constantly in the educational world right now. I'm sure you have heard them. The first one is something called cultural superiority. And again, you can just look at the leader of my country if you want more information. Cultural superiority is when one believes that their perspective is best, that their cultural values are best, and therefore they don't need to learn about anybody else's, and that their job in the world is to make other people adhere to their culture. This is not useful in cross-cultural communication, in cross-cultural work. Imagine if we all walked into the workplace with this attitude, we would get nothing done. So cultural superiority, not helpful. Another term, the opposite of that is now showing up everywhere in education, is cultural humility. And what this means, the current definition, is that cultural humility is a lifelong process of self-reflection and of learning, in which an individual examines their own beliefs, their own cultural identity, and then actively, deliberately seeks to learn about another. So now I know your brains are already making the connections between cultural sensitivity, the beginning of a process, cultural competency, a set of behaviors that allow you to interact successfully, and now cultural humility, which is a larger idea that encompasses all of it. Cultural humility is a learning mindset, and that is part of Famer. That you would not be here if you wanted to stay within your own culture and only learn those things that relate to your culture. Part of the reason you are here is because you want to learn about other cultures. You want to gather information about best practices from everyone and use them yourself. Those are the terms that we will be batting about today during this seminar, and they are living definitions. So they are changing constantly. I feel that every 2 months when I read a new paper about cultural competency or cultural humility, the terms have begun to shift. So this is very much the kind of growing edge of cross-cultural collaboration. We are sitting on it right now. So let us now explore the question, how might differing cultures, and specifically differing cultural values, impact collaboration? So we are all working across cultures. What conflicts might come up? And what can we do to overcome those conflicts? For the next exercise, we're going to do a role play. And perhaps this is no surprise because I am an actor, but I've also learned that a lot of educators are very good actors because you are doing it in front of your students every single day. So we will do a role play. The way this role play will work is we'll work for about 15 minutes in 3 small groups. Then we'll all come together and continue the role play. So my understanding is that we have 3 fellows who are going to act as moderators. Do you know who you are? If so, perhaps you can let me know. Okay, I see Ola has raised her hand.
Yes.
Excellent. So we have Ola. Who else?
Yes, the red group.
Yes, it's
Excellent.
Nova for the green group.
Great. And who is our third?
A red group.
The red group is
Abir.
Abir.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And thank you to the administrators for setting that up ahead of time. So hopefully I will be able to get my screen working. If not, moderators, I will send you the instructions so that you have them there to reference. I promise you that. So let me give you some background for this role play. Please imagine that we are all members of a small city. We live in a small community. And in our community, there are 3 very distinct cultures. We will call them the red culture, the green culture, and the blue culture. Please know all these cultures are entirely invented. They are not secretly based on any living culture. I am the mayor of this town. And our community includes people from many different socioeconomic levels. We have people who make enough money to live comfortably. We have people who are struggling a bit. And then we have people who are very, very poor. All of this happens within our town and across these 3 cultures. I have just learned that we have a chance to receive a federal grant to build a single public structure, just one structure. But we have many to choose among. And instructors, I will be sure you have this list. So don't worry, moderators, don't worry about memorizing it. We could choose a set of public toilets, which we do not currently have. We could choose a daycare for infants whose parents and grandparents must work. We could choose a shelter for the homeless. We could choose a nursing home for elderly people whose families are not available to care for them. We could choose a food bank for people without food. But we can only choose one. So here is your task. When we break into these 3 small groups, one group will be the red culture, one will be the green culture, one will be the blue culture. Your moderator will give you details about your particular culture and your cultural values. When you arrive in your small group, first, I'd like your moderator to share with you information about your particular culture and make sure that you all understand it. Secondly, I want you to discuss these 5 options for public structures and decide upon one that, according to your culture's values, you think is the best choice for the town to build. After you've decided which of these public structures is best, I want you to brainstorm with your group 3 very strong arguments to persuade the rest of the town to agree with you. Finally, I want you to decide how to present your argument in plenary to the entire town and to me, the mayor. So moderators, your job with your group is first to share with them the details of the culture, which you should have already received, red, green, or blue. Then to keep your group on task and on time, and record their ideas so that you can remind them of all of their best arguments. After you have about 15 minutes to do that, we will gather in a big group and we will hold a town meeting. And in that town meeting, we will hear from the red culture, the green culture, and the blue culture about which public works project you think we should select. Hopefully, by the end of our town meeting, we will all agree and be able to pick a single public structure. But we'll see. So before we divide into our three groups, what questions do you have? No questions at the moment? Syra, do you have a question?
Yes, I want to know, will we be told about the structure of those communities? Like what all facilities and what kind of people are living there according to the groups? Is it different?
This is an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. I am not going to define that for each of the three cultures. I think that you can decide that on your own,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Because
Okay,
we are
thank you.
all creating and imagining this community together.
Okay,
So I will leave that open, but thank you for asking that question.
thank you.
I appreciate that. What other questions do you have?
Who will argue? Is the moderator of the group or one of the team?
So we have these three moderators
Yes.
that we have already selected, and they should have received information about the cultures. So all of you will be assigned to one of those moderators.
Yes, I know. Who will
Yes.
argue after we meet again? Who
Yes.
will argue for each group? The moderator himself or herself?
Oh, I
or-
see. I'm so sorry. Now I understand. You can decide.
Okay.
So one group may want their moderator to speak for them. Another group may want 5 people to speak, one after the other.
Okay. Thank you.
You could even come up with something kind of crazy and sing the entire time, whatever you would like to do.
Thank you.
You do not have to sing, but I'm saying you can do whatever your group thinks best.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gada. Thank you very much for your question. Other questions from anyone else? All right, administrators, if you would please divide us into 3 groups, a red group, a blue group, and a green group. You will have 15 minutes. If you pop out of your group, don't panic. We will put you back in. All right, fingers crossed that this works. And I'm going to go try to figure out how to fix my computer.
Good luck with this.
Thank you. I think I will need it. All right. Zainab, are we ready to break people into 3 groups?
Okay,
Oh, Hekmat, thank you.
you are welcome.
Now I'm going to send to everyone the instructions. Okay. All right, I think I have fixed my computer. So hopefully I will be able to do slides in the second half. I have also sent information about this role play to everyone in the chat, so hopefully they will be able to get it.
دكتور سمرين. دكتور سمرين.
I have a quick question for the administrators. I see there are 2 breakout groups. Do we have 3 or do we only have 2?
احنا عاملين 3 بريك اوت روم ولا 2
I see. I see. Yes, I see that there are 3. Thank you so much.
شيماء
3
That's perfect. Great.
red blue green.
That's excellent. Thank you. I had to replace my computer about 2 days ago, and I am having difficulties with it because I did not know how to set up all of the things that were on my old computer. So the Zoom screen looks very different. The sharing buttons are different. It's very odd. So hopefully, when I see you again next week, I will be better at using this computer.
اوكي نو بروبلم
Thank you. You're very kind.
ويلكم
And I even practiced with it all day yesterday. But then, of course, as soon as you are actually doing it, things are different. All right. I will going to go work on the slides for the next activity, and I will be back in just a couple of minutes. But if you need me, please say my name and I will pop back on screen.
اوكي نعم. وهون في منهم.
All right, it looks like we are all regathered. I'll give people just a moment to finish popping in. All right. Hello, everyone, my fellow townspeople, and thank you so much for joining me, your mayor, at this town meeting. I know that we are all very eager to come up with a public works project to earn this grant money. It is a good amount of money. It will do our community, I think, a lot of good. So I would love to hear from these three cultures, the red, the blue, and the green. Do we have any volunteer to go first?
Okay, the red culture.
Thank you very much, Gada. Let us hear from the red culture, please.
Yeah. We choose the public toilets.
Excellent. And tell us why.
We need to have a health environment and to have a good personal hygiene, to scare others about infections, and to get a clean, safe living condition. It is one of our values.
I see. And
And we need to promote more healthiest environment and safe environment for all the people.
I see. And one thing that strikes me about your choice is that this is something that will affect all levels of our town. So whether the person has a great deal of money or the person does not, eliminating infection, ensuring clean and safe living conditions, and promoting health is something that will affect everyone.
Yeah, yes.
So that appeals to me very much. Excellent. Thank you very much for presenting that. We appreciate it.
The blue one, okay?
Yes, please, blue.
Okay. Our group goes with the nursery for elderly. Our argue that nowadays the elder people get large number, not as previously. The elderly above 60 and 65 years are now a very large category of any population.
Yes.
If we go with the nursery for elderly, we can expand the project after a while to rehabilitate some of the homeless. And we start, after doing some rehabilitation of some of the homeless, we make them able to take care of elderly. And after a while, after these homeless have a well rehabilitation and we ensure that they have a good social, educational, hygiene, and so on, we could expand the project more and more to include a nursery care or daycare for infancy. So at this time, we get benefit for elderly as a category, homeless. After a while, we expand the project to include homeless as another category, and after a while, we can expand the project also to include infancy, daycare for infancy. Some of our group team argue that so the elderly cannot take care of infants. The homeless cannot take care of infants. No. Many people who are coming today to become a homeless, they actually were educated, but sometimes some economic issues making them homeless. Some of elderly not necessity to be handicapped or unable to serve themselves. They enter the elderly nursery for elderly just to have a company and just to have a social life with others. So both elderly and homeless could take care of infancy as well. So we here the large group, the many outweigh the few. This is our consensus.
This is very impressive. So what you have offered us is a way to actually address many of our social problems by starting with the elderly. So they are kind of the tip of the iceberg, and then we can address homelessness, and then we can also address nursery and
Yes.
daycare.
Yes.
So interesting that the red group felt public health could affect every level of society. You, as the blue group, are saying dealing with the elderly can then affect all these other levels of society.
Yes.
So I appreciate the process that you're describing,
Yes.
that what you're offering is the beginning of a long process to better the society.
Yes.
Thank you very much, blue group. Excellent. Let us
Thank
hear now from the green group.
Yes, our green group, let me just share with you that our value is to benefit our most vulnerable citizens. So we thought that homeless people are the most vulnerable citizen. It's include elderly people, it include children, it include vulnerable women. All these categories can benefit from the shelter for the homeless. It covers all the categories. We thought that this shelter would help to protect the community. If these people, they don't find shelter, they don't find a way to sleep, they don't find enough food, they don't find enough health program that help them, they would become a sort of threatening to our community, to our babies, to everybody. So when they are in the shelter, they are going to have a rehabilitation programs that bring them more active, more strong, more independent, and then they can find their jobs. They even can take care of the children or even of the elderly population, and the project becomes sustainable. Within this shelter, we also have health programs, programs to improve their skills, a program to psychologically support them. So our community is safe and they are safe, and then we can build on. They will not stay in the shelter forever. They will become very strong and they will be very independent. They can earn their livings and they can benefit the community in all aspects. That's why we thought that these are the most vulnerable category in our community who needs help.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Green Group. And again, you are starting with the homeless and then expanding what you do with the homeless to affect the rest of the society.
Yes.
And that's something that I see now in all three of these groups. So just to summarize, in our red group, they argued that we should elect public toilets. This affects the health of the entire population. It keeps down infections. It promotes clean and safe living conditions. It affects the overall environment. Their focus really is on promoting public health because it affects everyone at every socioeconomic level. That was our red group. Our blue group argued for nursing homes for the elderly. There's a very large population of elderly, perhaps the largest in the society. This also can include homeless who could then be trained to take care of elderly, also could be trained to take care of young children. So again, by addressing the elderly, you also affect the homeless, you affect the children. And then our green group, they believe the most vulnerable group are the homeless because that includes the elderly, children, women, etc. Without help, people who are homeless could become a threat to the society. We can include rehabilitation, healthcare, job skills within this dealing with the homeless, and eventually they will leave the shelter and become productive members of the society. So we have one vote for public toilets. We have two votes. We have a vote for nursing homes for the elderly, and we have a vote for shelters for the homeless. How are we going to choose one? So take a moment, examine your heart. Is there anything that another group said that might persuade you to change your mind? Take a moment to think about that. And let us now take a very informal and non-scientific vote. So please raise your hand if you would like to vote for public toilets. Okay, I see a few. Okay, I'm looking for more hands. You can either raise your hand in your camera or you can, there goes Abir. Excellent. Thank you very much. Please raise your hand if you would like to vote for nursing homes for the elderly. Okay, oh, I'm seeing a few more here. Okay, very nice. And finally, please raise your hand if you would like to vote for shelters and support for the homeless. And I think we have a winner. So Green Group, congratulations. You were very persuasive and you have pulled people from other groups over to your side. We will elect to ask for money, money for a homeless shelter in our town. Thank you all very much for participating in this role play. We're going to take our break in about 3 or 4 minutes, but until then, I want to ask you a couple questions about this role play. So, this session is about working effectively across cultures, about realizing that our values are different and that we have to overcome those to try to collaborate. Why do you think we did this role play? What does this role play have to do with cultural sensitivity, in your opinion? Yes, Saira.
Being from India and doing the fellowship from Cairo, I met so many beautiful people from Egypt, Cairo, and we are very good friends now. So, keeping in that background in mind, I think this exercise just pointed out that at the end, we all are humans. We think about the social problem alike, and we want a solution which helps and benefits every human being. So, every culture comes and it coincides to the point, which is humanity. This is what I get. I don't know technically what I should get, but this is what I get from this exercise.
I think we will all take away something different, and I welcome your contribution. One thing that strikes me is that each of these 3 cultures is based on a value that is positive and affirmative and humane. So it is almost impossible to say that any of these 3 cultures is right and any of these 3 cultures is wrong. Because as you say, Saira, we are all coming from a place where we want to better the lives of the people around us. So one of the challenges in cross-cultural work is that we may all be coming from a very humane and positive set of values. That is not usually the problem in cross-cultural conflict. It is not the value, it is the action we take based on the value that usually causes trouble. So one of the things that I have found useful in cross-cultural work is to try to look past the actions to the value underneath. I can very much dislike somebody's action, but I might be able to understand or respect the value underneath it. Hadir, you have your hand up. Let us hear from you, and then we will take our break.
No, sorry, I have forgot to lower it down after the poll.
Oh, that's
After
all
the
right.
vote,
Sorry,
lose.
after the vote. Sorry.
You make us lose, you and Dr. Ahmed. Yeah. You're still raising your hand.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Ola, would you like to make a comment before our break?
Yes, please. What I learned from this role modeling activity is how to appreciate the values of different cultures. I can set the priorities when I'm choosing the how to help any culture or any society. The process I learned how to set my mind if I want to participate in such a public problem or solutions or whatever. I learned what is the right steps. First, appreciate. I know the values and needs of for each society, and
Mm.
then I'm going to set the priorities of for this based on the value. Appreciate the the point of view for each one when he's arguing about his values, and this is a very healthy process that we should manner in each society, because not with different, not cross culturing, it is even in the same culture and the same family, these values could be different, and we should appreciate to move forward these values.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, indeed. And we all are not only members of one culture, there are many subcultures within it that we are all members of as well. So that I can have a set of values that are completely different than my husband's on certain topics. I may not like his actions, but if I can figure out what's driving him, what is the underlying value? I may still not like his actions, but I can at least appreciate the value from which he's working. I know more people have things to say. I would love to hear from you, but let us now take our break. We will take a 10-minute comfort break. So we'll see you back at 7:11. And of course, if you need more time, you are always welcome to take it. I know that you will join us as soon as you can. Thank you for your work so far, and we will see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. And I know some folks will be joining us over the next minute or two. Thank you so much for your work thus far. I wanted to also thank you for your patience with my computer problems. I mentioned to the administrative team, my laptop had a catastrophic failure on Saturday, and I knew I was seeing you today. So I ran out, I got a new laptop, I set it up, and apparently some of the settings are not correct. So by the time I see you next Monday, I promise to be much better at using my new laptop. That is enough to raise one's blood pressure very high. So before we move forward, I want to invite anyone who did not have a chance to speak to comment on anything that we have covered thus far in this seminar, on the role play, on the definition of the cultural sensitivity to cultural competency journey, anything. So would anyone like to speak before we move forward? All right. Oh, I think I see one hand. Ahmed, please let us know what you think.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Just I want to highlight about the culture competency. I recently, we are working in UK for like 5 years now, and recently I moved to New Trust. I've been in induction recently last week. Interesting thing, they highlighted that our trust have 90 nationalities. 90 nationalities. So, which is something. So the speaker was asking, guess how many nationalities we have in our trust? I told like 15, 18. Other people giving like other numbers like 20, 25, and 90 nationalities, 90, which was really big number for me.
Yes.
The induction was about the trust value, which I like too much. And it was very simple 3 words. And I think summarized all our discussion today. It was about kindness, respect, and teamwork. So much.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, 90. Talk about raising your blood pressure. That is many cultures to keep track of, but very exciting. Noon.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
So regarding the different cultures and culture sensitivity, I come from Sudan, which is the 3rd largest country in Africa. And we have almost 570 tribes. So you can imagine how many different cultures we're dealing with. So while I was a student and after graduation, I was doing researches and I have met different tribes and many different culture sensitivity issues and even priorities. So one of the issues that we were dealing with, we were trying to make a public vaccination campaign in a certain village, and they were not cooperating. By the end of the day, we discovered that it's not their priority. They were suffering from scorpion, which was killing their children. So they want vaccines for this issue, and they're not interested in the other vaccines related to TB or anything else because they're not facing it. So what I learned from this experience, that if you are going to any place, you should know the culture, you should know the priority of the people who are living there, and you need someone from this culture to guide you what is really important. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. One of the things that we study at FAMER is the idea of being a cultural outsider or a cultural insider. And if I am someone who is very curious about other cultures, I really need the help of a cultural insider so that they can help me understand what I am seeing. And that's exactly what you're describing. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thanks to all of you. Now, let us move forward. I want to offer you a way to think about culture and talk about culture that I have found very useful. Some of you may already know this theorist. Her name is Nitza Hidalgo. She is a Cuban-American educator. She currently works at a university in the US, But her research is all focused on multicultural education. In the US, and this reminds me of what Nguyen just said, in a single classroom, you may have 15 or 20 different cultures represented. So Hidalgo asked herself, how do we reach all of these children across cultures? How do we compare and contrast cultures? And she came up with a model that I think is quite useful. So fingers crossed, I'm going to try again to share my screen with you so that we can take a look at Hidalgo's model. All right. So do you see my screen?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, success. So Hidalgo has created a model that discusses 3 different levels of culture. The first one, the most surface level, she calls the concrete. And this would include anything that you can experience with your senses. It is the most visible and the most tangible level of culture. This would include clothes, food, games, dances. The concrete level are those levels of culture that are often highlighted in multicultural festivals. And for a cultural outsider, someone not from that culture, the concrete level of culture is very easy to see. So if I go to Malawi, if I go to Burkina Faso, I walk into the country and I can see the concrete level of culture without the help of a cultural insider. Hidalgo's second level, the behavioral. These are actions that people take within the culture. So this includes everything from our social roles, our languages, our nonverbal communication, how we use our bodies in that culture, gender roles, behavioral taboos, what is allowed and not allowed in that culture, and other actions that situate us in society. So you can see that for a cultural outsider, they can still see the behavioral, but they may start having trouble understanding what they're seeing. So the behavioral level of culture is a little deeper. It's a little more complex than the concrete level. And then the deepest level of culture, according to Hidalgo, and something that we have already been discussing, is the symbolic level of culture. And this has to do with the foundational ideas that shape our identity as individuals, but also as societies. So this would include our beliefs, our customs, our religion, our view of the world, our norms. And as you can imagine, the symbolic level is very difficult for a cultural outsider to see. And really, the only way that we see it is with the help of a cultural insider. So a couple notes that I want to insert here. One is, and I'm sure you've already noticed this, these 3 levels of culture are not separate. They interact all the time. For example, say that I attend an Egyptian wedding. There are certain foods that we eat at that wedding that are part of the concrete level of culture. I can see the food, I can taste the food, but that food may also have symbolic meaning. So that's a level of culture that I'm going to need help understanding. I can enjoy the delicious food, but only you can help me understand why it's there. So these 3 levels of culture interact constantly. Any element of culture will most likely belong to more than one level. The other thing I'd like to mention, and I think I'm going to bring you back to me now because I miss you all. There you are again. Is that in Hidalgo's conception, the levels of culture get deeper as they go down, and this relates to a model that some of you may know called the iceberg model, where the level of culture that you see above the water, the tip of the iceberg, is the most superficial level. Then you can see a level just below the water in that iceberg model, but you're not quite sure what you're seeing. And then there is the deepest part of the iceberg that you cannot see at all from the surface. And that kind of corresponds to Hidalgo's model. So now that I've introduced you to Hidalgo and to her model, I want to do a little brainstorming with the whole group. So we'll have a group discussion. Please imagine that a cultural outsider, someone who does not know Egypt at all, has arrived in the country for a visit. What concrete elements of culture might this person immediately notice? And please raise your hand, or you can also throw things into the chat. Gada.
Food.
The food, the
Egyptian food,
fabulous and famous Egyptian food, right?
Yes.
So they will see it everywhere. They'll be very excited to try it. What other concrete levels of culture will they see?
Music.
Music, yes, Syra.
Music, yes.
Oh, I think you're muted.
Very friendly people who want to help you in every way.
Yes.
Excellent.
Want any help?
That's great. And that actually moves us into our behavioral level as well, right? So the way that people greet us, the way that they offer to help us, give us directions, recommend places for us to go, that is part of the behavioral. I see over here in the chat, the way that people dress is a concrete level of culture that people can see, and very approachable people. So the open, warm Egyptian hospitality will be immediately obvious. What about the symbolic aspects of Egyptian culture? What symbolic aspects might they see, even if they don't understand what they're seeing?
Prayer.
Prayer,
Prayer.
of course.
Prayer.
So if this person is from a different faith tradition, they will immediately see the importance of prayer in Egyptian
Mosques.
society and how it's done, but they won't understand what they're seeing. Syra, yes.
If football matches assemblies in the evening on tea stalls.
Okay.
Very popular.
Excellent. Absolutely. I see in the chat, Dr. Saumitri has said marriage with music. So that is concrete and behavioral and symbolic. They will see it immediately. Ramadan iftar vibes. Excellent. Right? So again, they will see these things, but they need your help to understand what they're seeing, because everything here is tied into the symbolic level of culture. All right, thank you very much for participating in that discussion. Now I invite you to please grab a writing utensil, so paper and pencil, or open up the app on your electronic device. And I'm going to ask you to do a little writing just for yourself. I think I'm going to, there you go.
Mute.
I'm going to mute, right?
Yes.
It happens to all of us. A few moments ago, my dog was barking very loudly, and I was just praying that none of you heard it. All right, so I'm going to have you answer a question, and I'll put this up on the screen in just a moment. And the question is, what are some of my culture's deeply held beliefs? What are some of my culture's deepest values? So a couple things to think about before you begin writing. First of all, you do not have to share this list. It is your private list. So you write whatever you want, and you will not have to share it if you don't want to. Also, this is about your perception of your culture, and we all have different perceptions. So no one will argue with you about, no, that's not a deeply held belief. It is your perception of values. Also, you can decide which culture you're exploring. So there is the largest basket, we'll say, for overall Egyptian culture, but within it, there are so many subcultures, and all of us are members of many of those. So you decide which culture you're thinking about. I'm going to put up this question on the screen in a moment to guide you. I will give you 5 minutes, and I'd like you to just write as many of the deeply held values of your society that you can think of. Before we begin, what questions do you have? All right, so let me share my screen. I'm going to come over here and bring up this question. So please take 5 minutes and write as much as you can think of to answer this question. Thank you so much. You have 1 minute left. And thank you so much. Please finish writing your last one. So thank you for creating that list. Now I'd like you to take a look at that list and determine 3 of those values that at this moment, today, you consider most important. Tomorrow, you may choose 3 different ones. The day after, you may choose 3 different ones. But for this moment, today, choose the 3 values you think are most important to you. Thank you very much. Now, set that list aside just for a moment. We're going to come back to it in a couple of minutes. Now, I would like you to think of a different culture. It can be a culture that you know very, very well. It can be a culture that you know something about, but about which you are curious. And now, with that culture firmly in your mind, on a new piece of paper or a new part of your app, I'd like you to list some of that culture's symbolic values as you perceive them. You are not necessarily a cultural insider of this other culture, but make your best guess. What do you think are some of that culture's deepest values? Again, I'll give you about 4 or 5 minutes and write as many as you can. Does anyone have questions? Okay, please begin. And pardon the interruption, but I just want to say, I will not ask you to identify this other culture. That is entirely your secret. And you have 1 minute left, so please keep writing. Thank you so much. And please stop wherever you are. And now, as you did before with your own culture, I'd like you to look at this second list and choose 3 that you think might be most important in that culture. And again, this is your perception of their values, so we will not argue with you. Thank you very much. Now, if you're able, I'd like you to take a look at those 2 lists side by side, or at least, pull up the entire screen so you can see both lists. And see if you notice any shared values from one culture to the other. And just notice, we won't discuss for now, but just notice. Next, see if you notice any values that appear to be direct opposites. Perhaps one culture is very quiet, perhaps the other culture is very loud, etc. And the next thing I'd like you to notice, and again, we won't discuss, but just notice, how did you identify the other culture's values? Did you base your list on things that you observed, things you experienced, things that you've read, maybe a cultural insider that you know? And finally, I'd like you to reflect on, if you wanted to deepen your understanding of that culture's values, how might you do it? Thank you for that reflection. And now I'd like to open up the discussion. As you experienced this exercise, was there anything that surprised you?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
First,
God,
when I
yes.
think, okay, when I first think about my culture values, okay, then I start to think about and do my list. Then I start to think about Saudi Arabia, as I live in Saudi Arabia for 6 years. So I found that I think this is no big difference. Maybe on the listing, on the prioritization of the values, but the same values are present. So I start to think in USA, for example, or Western country, and found very different values coming from my reading, media, film, cinemas, and something like newspaper, social media, and something like that. I found opposing. For example, one of our biggest value or a big important value and belief in Egyptian community is the concept of a family, the community, the family, the nuclear unit. Okay, it is responsible for not only 3 or 4 members. No, we are responsible for a large family. The opposite is the individualism and self-reliance that in USA. So they are both opposing. Other values, okay, it may be very different. For example, freedom, equality, diverse, respect, work-life balance. Also, there is a different. But I think the family-centered approach in Arabic and Muslims countries over the self-reliance and individualism in the Western country are very opposing and very obvious to notice and believe and accept from many medias and things like that.
Yes, absolutely. And that is something one is aware of as soon as one arrives in the US, that you can see concrete evidence of it, behavioral evidence of it, and then you
Yes.
realize there is a symbolic
Symbol.
thing as well.
Yes.
Right. So the individual is held up above any group, including the family.
Yes.
Right. Which is also the root of many problems in American
Yes.
society.
Yes. In Western,
I-
all Western society. Yes.
I can tell you that from firsthand experience. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything that surprised you as you made these lists? Yes, Ira.
So I compared between our Indian culture and the Egyptian culture, and the 5 things I listed down are same in both the cultures.
Huh.
So I couldn't find, because I may share it with you, I don't have any problems. Like, we have respect for the family and the community, and we have large families. In India also, we have a culture of joint families like in Egypt. And we are very hospitable and generous like Egyptians. We value our heritage and history in India, like in Egypt. And we value faith and spirituality in India. Maybe we have different religions, but everybody is very deeply into spirituality and faith. Maybe a Hindu, a Muslim, a Sikh, or any religion. And all of us are striving towards empowerment, education, and knowledge. So same is there with Egypt. So I couldn't find a single factor that was different. So this is my finding. Nothing different, except for people.
Yes, I have at times done this exercise in a conflict resolution setting where we have 2 groups who are really in direct confrontation with one another. And what is remarkable is that almost all the time we discover that there are shared values between the 2 groups. We have been distracted by choices, by actions, by the concrete and behavioral levels of culture. But when we look at the symbolic level, we realize how much these 2 cultures have in common. So thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful
Thank you.
articulation of something many of us experience.
Yes.
Anyone else? Anything that surprised you or anything that you will take away from this exercise that might be useful? And it's always all right not to answer.
I have something to share.
Yes, please.
So what surprised me from my experience, I work out of Egypt maybe for 15 years now. Along years, I kept changing my ideas about other cultures. So when we assume at the start there is something in the culture, tend to be absolutely the opposite. So always we need an insider, and how people value their values is different than what we are assume. So sometimes they might take it lightly, but the inside deeply hurted with some simple things. So this what apply to us apply to others. So we develop this over years, and the hard way we learned it, not the easy way. But I think this very valid point, and thank you for bringing it to surface today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bassem. I appreciate that. So now I want to shift a little. We have now examined more the symbolic level of culture. Oh, I'm sorry, Noon, did you want to say something?
It's okay. It's something that a reflection from what Dr. Gada said and Saria as well, that when they were speaking, I discovered that there are many similarities, which I didn't expect. We also in Sudan value a lot the value of family, but we are extremists. We are even living together, like 6 families can live in the same house. So whenever a dad thinking about making a home, he's thinking about something very large, so it can accommodate up to 6 apartments. So we all in Sudan raised with our cousins. Like we are living in the same house. We have different apartments, but at the same time, we're eating together, we're playing together. What I also find similar between Sudan, Egypt, and India, that we have very loud wedding days. Yes. It's something shared, and I love the vibes. And something is very similar to India, we have in Sudan called Jirtik. You go and should search for it. It's really very nice. And whenever I see an Indian movie, I'm impressed how this is similar to our weddings. It's called Jirtik. You go and search it, please. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, that is, I have a great time in Indian weddings. So, yes, I appreciate that. Hopefully, I will be able to go to a Sudanese wedding and an Egyptian wedding at some point, too.
Yeah, sure, inshallah.
That would be delightful. So thank you very much for sharing. Now I want to step forward in our final moments together and share with you something that we've been developing at FAMER over the past 20 years since I came to FAMER. So let me share my screen. We'll take a look at this together. So this is a list of behaviors that over the years, FAMER faculty, FAMER fellows, FAMER consultants have shared with me. These are actions that they use to work well across cultures. So just as I mentioned at the beginning of our session, that cultural sensitivity, cultural competency, cultural humility are living terms, that the definition of these terms is changing and shifting day to day, year to year. The same is true of this list. But please read through this. And one thing I'll ask you to note immediately is that almost all of these behaviors have to do with communication. This was not something that I designed. This was just what people told me. So, pardon? Oh, I don't think Bassem is aware that he is. There we go. I'll mute him. All right, so the first one, speak slowly. We do not share languages across cultures. We don't even share dialects. So speaking slowly is extremely important. We all have regional accents, and they can be difficult to understand. In the US, there are people who live 10 miles from me, and I can barely understand them. They live in a section of New Jersey, which is the state next to mine. And I have to constantly say, pardon me, can you repeat that? Pardon me. So speaking slowly, very important. Listening actively, so that we are, again, affirming, yes, I understand you, or no, I do not understand you, giving clear signals to the other person. The third one is one that I threw in, observe others before acting. As I have traveled around the world for Famer, I often am encountering rituals of greeting, of sharing a meal together, of saying goodbye to one another that are new. And the only way I can figure out how to move in that culture is to observe cultural insiders. What do they do, and how can I learn from them? The fourth one is very important to me, especially as a communications coach, using both verbal and nonverbal communication. So using your body even more than you would if you were talking to someone within your own culture. I think the next one, look for meaning beyond the words, connects to our study of symbolic values, in the sense that every culture can use language to describe something deep and rich. As a cultural outsider, I may not understand the depth underneath someone's words unless I deliberately listen for it and ask questions about it. So I may say to people, pardon me, do you mean this or do you mean this? To elicit the meaning beyond the words. Again, because we're not from the same culture, our cultural references are different. Our slang or our idioms are different. So looking for meaning beyond the words, very useful. And I think the next one is really important, especially if you travel around the world. Ask respectful questions and clarify terms. You will never know unless you ask. But the key is to ask them in a respectful manner. But if someone is using a term that I've never heard before, I want to ask what that means so I can participate in the conversation. But with all of these, the most important one to me, beyond all the others, is the final one. Withhold judgment and invite curiosity. So when I encounter a behavior, a value that is very, very different than my own, my first impulse may be to reject it, to judge it, to say, I don't like this. My way of doing things is better. But unfortunately, what that does is it shuts a door. It closes the door between myself and the other person. The way to open the door is to, instead of hanging on to my judgment, is to invite myself to ask why. Why is this person behaving the way they're behaving? What is underneath the behavior? I want to bring you back to me for a moment. It is impossible not to judge, because that is an intuitive, reflexive thing that we will all do. You cannot be upset with yourself if you judge people of another culture. But that doesn't have to be the end of the story. My judgment occurs, I can recognize, oh, I just judged that, and I can make another choice. Beyond the judgment, I can say, I'm not familiar with this behavior. I may not like this behavior that I'm seeing in the other person, but I can become curious about it. So the door that might have shut between us suddenly swings open. And it's the curiosity that is going to, I think, help us overcome our own judgment. So, as I said, this list is a living list. It changes constantly. I'm sure you will create a list of your own at some point about behaviors that help across cultures. But it seems to me that the creation of this list whether it is a formal thing you do or an informal thing, is the key to working well across cultures. The important point is that you try to be open to the other person, that you try to let go of your judgment and embrace curiosity, that you try to ask the respectful question. That effort in itself is a journey toward cultural competency. So we have just a few minutes left. And I would like to open the floor to you to collect some of the learning. So as you think back over what we covered in today's session, is there anything that you feel you can take away that might be useful in your life today, your professional life, your personal life? Are there any takeaways? So take a moment to think about that. I'll give us about 30 seconds, and then I'll ask you to share. So now I invite your comments. Is there anything that you will take away from today that might be useful in the future? Oh yes, Saira.
Two things I'll take away from today. Number one is to be non-judgmental to anybody's reaction or thoughts. And number two is to find out the underlying values to that thought.
Yes, thank you. And that is not always easy.
Yes, that's the most difficult part.
Right? So
To restrain yourself.
we will judge, inevitably we will judge. So it takes effort to pull back from your judgment and get curious again. And it also, I see that Ahmed just wrote, mind the gap, which I like very much. Mind the culture gap. It also
Yes.
can be very challenging to want to ask respectful questions because sometimes we just want to get away from the experience. So all of this is challenging, but it is worthwhile. Thank you for that. Gada, did you have a comment?
Yes, I like your word, the iceberg model for culture sensitivity or culture competency. We do believe that we know the culture of someone else, but actually we look at the surface of the iceberg. We need to have a more and more effort to deepen on the other surfaces in order to know the behavioral and symbolic values of other cultures.
I think you raised something really important here, Gada. There is something in psychology that you might all be familiar with called the primary attribution error. And it has to do with, I always assume, this is a very boiled down version for any psychologists out there, but I assume that I always have good intentions. I assume the other has bad intentions.
Yes.
And this is part of human nature. Right? So if I make a mistake, I will think, well, that's not because I'm a bad person. That's because these circumstances set me up to make this mistake. But if the other person makes a mistake, I think that's a bad person.
Yes.
Okay, so this is...
Yes. So you need to be aware of our culture bias. We need to be aware of our culture bias. Yes.
I think so. We are trying very hard to stay open and be welcoming, but we are humans. And sometimes we're going to judge others differently than ourselves. Yes. I am looking at the chat here, and I'm seeing a lot of, take a look at the chat if you can. There's a lot of really lovely things in here. Let me get over here so I can move it around. Shaima says, take care about judgments, withhold judgments. I think this is the cause of most conflicts. Absolutely. And that means not only in the world, but also in your household. That when I have a fight with my husband, it's because I've judged what he's done instead of ask, why did he do it? Wassam says, be sensitive, curious, respectful, and communicate that. Amira, invite the curiosity. Thank you, Shaima. Liking the way that I started the meeting by talking about Gaza. That is, it's very challenging, I think, to remain open-hearted and trying to work successfully across cultures in the face of horror. So this is an especially challenging time, I think, to do what we all do. Ola says, when you put yourself in others' shoes, don't forget to take their values with you. Very nice. And
Yes.
Dr. Saumitri, you wanted to say something?
Yes, ma'am. I would just wanted to add that we should be able to be relate to others, and we should be accepting, and of course being non-judgmental, and we have to be open, be aware of whatever it is, and then we have to be respectful. And if we communicate, I think cultural competence is something that we could achieve.
I think it is achievable, and I have seen it with people in Famer. People I've worked with for 20 years who over time become so graceful at working across cultures. And I have seen their progress and seen the change. And one thing I will say in closing is the idea of cultural humility, of being always open to learning and expanding your understanding of other cultures. That never means that you do not love your own culture. You can be ferociously proud of who you are and where you come from and how you do things. I think the next step is to say, I suspect the other person is proud of their culture too. And let me see if I can figure out why. Yes, so that's all I will say. We are almost out of time. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a delight to be with you. I think we have one more comment from Dr. Khushbu.
Hello, I just want to share. A lot has been said already about culture. I'm from Nepal, and the culture here is completely different to what I saw in Egypt. And blending both of that, the amalgamation of both the cultures, I think in core, we are the same as humans. That's what I felt. We all need love, compassion, everything. And today, I also want to share that in my country, 19 young people are dead because of the protest that is happening right now. So I don't know, because of the ban on the social media. So I'm very disturbed today, and I was unable to communicate well because a lot of phone calls that we're getting of our loved ones, like known people, are dead in the protest. So they're 19. So I don't know how to share this, but this is something which is very disturbing throughout the entire session. Therefore, I wasn't able to be present completely today. So I'm extremely sorry for that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. This is a very challenging time for anyone who loves peace and loves humans.
We are a Buddha, the country of Lord Buddha. The peace is something which is so much important, and we love our mothers in the same way. We pray our mothers, and in land of something like this, we just for a normal protest that went violent, and 19 people are young, almost from 12 to 20 years. They're ranging of that age, so they all dead. So it's like a very sad news for us today. Just wanted
I
to
am
share.
so sorry. I am deeply sorry. I hope that in the end, I hope those people who are culturally competent will win. That's what I hope, that we will become the next wave of leaders. Thank you very much for everything that you shared. I know that I will see you again for a communication session in about a week. I wish you well. Please feel free to email me anytime with questions or comments, and your administrative team can give you my contact information if you don't already have it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. I will see you in a week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.